towards the line. Susanna Michael Kinane win it on the line.
And joins Causeway, does what he does best. He's digging deep to win the champion. 5 Group 1s for the Giant. It's High Chaparral and Mick Kinane. He's going to win his 5th as they go to the line. High Chaparral beats the unlucky Falbram. Asamore flying from last on the outside, going up to the line. It's another champion from Mick Kinane. They've come to see a star, and it's See the Stars who hits the front for Michael Kinane and John Oakes. And racing up towards the finish, the undisputed champion, See the Stars is running away.
Michael, here we are at the start of the Irish Champion Stakes at Leopardstown, the 10 furlong start. It's a race that has been really good to you, in which you've done really well through the years. You've 7 wins on the board, more than any other rider, and I think as well as that, it's the big race that you've won more often than any other race in the world. So it's been a brilliant race. It all started, of course, it wasn't even here with Carroll House back in about 84, was it?
Yeah, yes, about that in Phoenix Park. Yeah. So yes, it's been a fabulous race for me. Yeah, so a very important start, as you can see. You don't really see it from the stands, but your start is right on the bend.
That's the thing that struck me most about you. When you're watching from the stands, you think it's nearly a straight run up the back straight, but it's important to be close to the inside here, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and if you want to be on near the pace, which is always pretty handy around here, you want a really good start. It's hard to recover if you're at a lower draw. To recover from a bad start here, as you can see, like you're turning for a furlong and a half before you actually level out into the backstretch. So it's important to get in the right spot early.
So from here then, when you would look at the draw for your rides in the Champion Stakes, did you want to be inside or outside, or did it depend on the horse?
Ideally, one out from the rail is where you want to end up.
Right.
Middle draw gives you options here, if you just in case you didn't quite hit it. But it's important to know then where all the pace is around you, and then you can sort of know where you want to land by the corner,
Yeah, because on Pilsudski you were drawn 1, but that was maybe unusual because they really stretched out down the back.
They did, yeah. Listen, it's fine if there's huge pace on the gap. The gaps will appear for you then because they're going plenty hard, and that makes life very simple. But when that doesn't happen, then Leopardstown becomes sort of trappy.
Yeah. Just on Carroll House, like he was a massive horse for you, wasn't he? Not only for the Irish Champion Stakes at the Phoenix Park, but also then a couple of weeks later won the Arc.
Yeah, he was. It was sort of my big break onto the international scene, I suppose. I had picked up Carroll House through my sorties in Italy on Sundays, and picked up the ride and won the Irish champion on him. Went to the Arc. He had given me a difficult ride in the Irish champion because it was firm ground. He didn't like it, and I went to the Arc thinking I was going to have a tough ride because the ground was good to firm, but the deluge happened overnight and turned up heavy, and he just was a different horse on heavy ground.
Yeah, but he did well to win the Irish Champion Stakes at the Phoenix Park, and I think he just won the Irish Oaks on Ali Duress a couple of months earlier as well.
Yeah, it was just the start of the things.
Going,
Tyrrell, Ali Duress. Yeah, that was just the roll of the dice, and it kept going, thankfully.
And how different a race was it? This is probably not a very intelligent question, but the Phoenix Park versus Leopardstown, how different was that?
Yeah, well, it was Phoenix Park was a switchback. You'd start at front of the stands, and it was like a V. Yeah. You ran down the back and came up the middle.
Back up,
So very different track to here. This is really good. Tough finish here in comparison to the Phoenix Park, which was very fast at the time, So, yeah, this is a much tougher ask of a horse at a mile and a quarter.
And is it a fairer test or just different?
Different. It's a great track here. Yeah, great track.
Okay, sure. Look, we'll have a walk then and have a look at some points along the way.
Yes.
So, Michael, we're coming to the end of the back straight here. And you can see we've come all the way. You can just about see the stalls around the bend that you were talking about earlier on. It's a fair turn, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yeah, you're turning for a furlong and a half, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your race is sort of well settled by here. You're before you get to that road, everybody's in position he wants or doesn't want to be in.
You have to put up with what you have at that point.
You sort of make the best of it there,
Yeah.
and then of course, depending on the pace,
Yeah.
what kind of pace is on the race, how happy anybody's going to be. And when you get to this point, you're trying to get a breather into your horse, because we're just starting to get on the bend. People start getting a bit edgy in the wrong spot or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But you want to save as much as you can, because you're going to turn for quite a bit here. And on the Champion Stakes track, you're out near to the chase course here.
So you're just like you're quite wide.
It's going to ride at
track
its
here.
longest stretch. The home stretch is probably 50, 70 yards longer
Than on
than
the
if
inside
you were
track.
on the inside.
I mean, you can see how much ground they have here to work with. Like
Yeah.
the inside track, it's a fair bit tighter, isn't it?
Oh, it is, yeah. It's a totally different track
Yeah.
inside. You can flick off that home turn on the inside track there and it might never get you.
Yeah.
But when you're out here, that last
just
50
long.
yards can, as you can see over the years, it can
Absolutely,
change
yeah.
so much, because it's a long pull, and the tendency is they will race early because you need to get a bit of momentum off the home turn, so things will start happening, and sometimes it straight becomes too long or too short.
Yeah. And they're generally well-run races, aren't they? The Irish Champion Stakes.
I can't recall riding on one that was a slow run affair. You know, maybe not flat out, but mostly, if well-seasoned horses that know what they're doing, riders know what they want to do, you either need a strong run race, and there's, you know, you have to be positive, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a great racing calendar for the Arc or Breeders' Cups.
Yeah.
It's perfect position, the Irish Champion Stakes, for it.
Three weeks before the Arc.
And
Yeah.
it's such a valuable race.
Yeah.
You know, you want to win an Irish Champion Stakes if you have a good horse, a 4-year-old, 3-year-old.
Yeah. And just watching the videos of your wins, like it was rare that you were too far off the pace. Like, did you always set out to just get a position not too far behind the leaders?
Yeah, because you know, as you see when you get a home turn, once you get around there, you're doing a lot of turning here, and once you get momentum off that dip, it's hard to make ground up unless the pace was full on, you know.
Yeah.
So stalking position is ideally one off the rail, perfect. It gives you the option to get out,
Yeah.
because the inside can be a death trap here. Everything, the tendency is always for horses to gravitate back onto the rail, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, so you want to be a little bit off the rail, as
Just
you
to give you the
invariably
option.
were.
Yes.
Yeah, even when you were drawing one, as we said, on Pilsudski. But before Pilsudski was Cezanne, he was 94. I think he was your first Irish Champion Stakes winner here at Leopardstown.
Yes,
That was
for Godolphin.
Sir Michael Stott and Godolphin. I
Yeah.
mean, we didn't know then what Godolphin was going to become, did we?
No, we were going to end up being great rivalries between Ballydoyle and Godolphin over the years, which was great at the time.
And just tell us about, do you remember the Cezanne race? Del Dea, Frankie Dettori, she led into the home straight, and you just, again, it was another one of those tight finishes.
Yeah, I was always knew she was sort of the one I wanted to stay in touch with, and I was in striking distance all the way, and just wore her down, and it was a tight finish, from my recollection is.
Yeah, no, it was. I think there were 8 runners in the race, and 7 of them were trained in Britain.
Yes.
Like it was a race that the British dominated for. I think between Park Express and Timarita, there was no Irish trained winner in those 10 years. So the British used to come over and regularly plunder it, didn't they?
That was it. The British horses were much more stronger than us at that time, but then that swung back when, you know, Ballydoyle and Como got very strong, and we started breeding, you know, better horses here, and swing came back a bit. So thankfully.
Yeah, and obviously your first 3 winners, Carol House, Cezanne, Pilsudski, they were all trained in Britain.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's where you'd have to find your rides at those times.
Well, you were the go-to man for British trainers coming over here.
Fortunately, yes, I was. Yeah.
On Pilsudski, he was just that was probably your easiest winner, was he?
Oh yeah, he was a fabulous racehorse. He was a push-button horse, and also you just get his head out and loved racing, you know. And yeah, I had a great year with him. Irish champion, English champion, Japan Cup, Eclipse. Yeah, he was just a beautiful horse to ride. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Irish Champion Stakes, they went very, very fast. You were drawn in stall 1, but even so, you still managed to get the position that you talked about, just kind of off the rail.
Yeah, you need to have that option, because one down inside can be a death trap here, I'm afraid.
And the reception that you would have got, and we'll come on to see the stars later, but coming back in after winning an Irish Champion Stakes, was it a massive thrill?
It was always a great race. You know, it was, rather than Pensulski, I'd say all my wins they're all tight finishes. You know, and it always lends itself to a really exciting affair. And people, the race goers always came expecting a great race, and invariably always got it.
Yeah, of course it's the day of the Matron Stakes as well.
Sure, absolutely.
Grant, shall we have a wander around the home turn?
Okay.
Michael, we're on the crown of the home turn here, and as you were saying earlier, the race is just starting to hot up. Where do you want to be in general around about here?
A little bit farther out than where you are.
Right here.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, one out and one back,
Right.
or two back, depending on how much speed is on, and what's happening at this point, because momentum will start to build from here, because people will want to find a slot to get out, or either the ones that are behind are trying to get up around to prevent you from coming out. So there's a lot of movement going on, a lot of chesses, a lot of movement on the board here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so you need to get some sort of momentum out of here. We sort of nearly generally slingshot a bit out this dip.
Okay.
But with the track being out here, as you can see, it's about 175 yards longer. And as you can see, it's a huge climb. So if you turn in and you go for home early here, that last 50 yards, 100 yards is going to be long, because there's always somebody coming here at Leopardstown. Somebody who either didn't get a run, or you'll have that mile and a half horse that stays a mile and a half. It's just starting to get into his own that last 100 yards. So you can always expect something late here.
And so, as you said, we've come down into a wee dip here, just around whatever, just inside the 3 furlong marker.
Yeah, you're about 2.5 to here, in the middle here somewhere.
And then, like, it's some pull, isn't it, from here around the bend and all the way up. Like, and I know we talk about it quite a bit, but you don't really appreciate it even from the stands, and definitely not from a side-on television camera.
Yeah, it's a big pull. And like most thoroughbreds, they have about 2 furlongs on flat out, and after that, he gets running on empty. So, you know, that's why it can change so much in the last 50 yards here, because sometimes you're forced to move early to hold your position. Other than you have no choice. Yeah. And you could just get paid a penalty later on. And that's the fascinating thing about this track and the Champion Stakes is there's always something going to happen later on.
Well, I guess, not that I know the first thing about it, but the trick is to not be in a position where you're forced to move earlier than you want to move. Just to time it to get there.
Yes, yes. If you can take stock, once you level out there for 5, 6 strides, 7 strides, and let him fill up. And then if you're ready to go then at the 2 pole, depending on what's happening around you or what's ahead of you that you got to go and tackle, then you're hopefully making you move at the right time.
And as they come towards the turn into the straight, Giant's Causeway takes the inside berth. Best of the Best has got to go round the pacemaker, and the two come head to head off the home turn.
So it was around about here on Giant's Causeway that you came up on the inside of Paul Scallon.
Yeah. And his was just leaning off the rail a little bit.
Just enough to allow enough of a gap for you to get through.
Yeah, and
Frankie Dettori had to go. He was over there somewhere.
He had to just go out there a little bit. Yeah, he had to get the crown of the hill. So now I ended up beating him well enough at the finish, but it was a nice start to get on him.
I think he actually headed you.
He did,
halfway up the home straight. Yeah.
But that was Giant's Causeway was always waiting to be headed, and I always wanted to fight back. You know, so he did head me, but I think the last 5 or 10 strides I had it well won then, you know. But it was key at this stage to get the soft run. And
of course, a year later,
roles
were reversed.
That's right. My pacemaker went off a little quick that day, and Richard Hills rode pacemaker for Frankie.
Give the slip,
Give the slip. Aptly named as he was, and. He gave Frankie the run, and I had to go around, give the slip at this point, probably right at this point, I'd say, and to go and tackle Frankie. Listen, we tussled all the way up the straight, but he always he just held me all the time. It was one of those great tussles that I came on the wrong side of, unfortunately. But it's. They got it right on the day, and we just paid a penalty for not quite getting it right.
But like obviously fantastic light in Galileo. It was one of those races, wasn't it? It was like a Grundy Bustino type race where it's one of the best horse races that we've seen in the modern era.
It is, and unfortunately they keep replaying it and everybody keeps bringing it up. But yeah, it was. It's a race you just want to watch all the time because it was a great race. Love to reverse the roles. There you go.
Fantastic light on the far side from Galileo. They're head to head for the final furlong. Galileo on the near side of Fantastic Light. They're inside the last 200 yards. Galileo on the near side. Fantastic Light battling for all he's worth. Head to head as they go to the line. Fantastic Light gets his revenge.
Part of history.
It is, yeah. And Galileo, like, he was a phenomenal racehorse, wasn't he?
Yes, unfortunately we lost him this year. It was a pity. You know, what he went on to become is just phenomenal, you know, and it was great to be associated with such a great horse, you know.
Yeah. And then High Chaparral, a couple of years later in 2003, again, that was another one that you came out the right side of, and that was, you know, you talk about things happening in a race. There was an awful lot going on between here and the winning line.
Yeah. Darrell found himself into one hole here, and I knew he was in it, and he was never coming out of it a bit, unfortunately. But for him, it was a tight affair that day. I think four was when they crossed the line within a length, did we? Mm-hmm. And fortunately, I got it. I came out the right side. We had an appeal and a few things.
Yeah, the story didn't end on the day. Yeah.
No. And but we finished similar. Then I went on and I beat Falbrav in the Breeders' Cup after winning here. Yeah. But it was an exciting race. I bent the rules a little bit, but got away with it.
Yeah, it was a hell of a race.
High Chaparral driven out by Mick Kinane. Falbrav on the inside, gaining with every line. High Chaparral's won it.
Like you talk about High Chaparral, like he was a 1.5 mile horse, wasn't he, running over 10 furlongs?
Yes, he was. Yeah, he was. His best trip was 1.5 miles. You know, and it was a great train performance to get him here to win this over 1.25 miles. Yeah, he was very versatile, very tough horse. Yeah.
And did you ride him aggressively then? Of course, you can't be too aggressive on him, but did you ride him knowing that he would, like, that he needed a wee bit further?
Well, he was lazy. You know, you had to dig everything out of him. You had to ask him for it. There was always something there, but you had to ask him for it. So you're on the cusp of doing too much or too little with him, you know. So it's a difficult balance to get it right with him, you know. So whilst I knew I had the stamina, I didn't want to open all the gaps that I knew there could have been opened if I had pressed the button a bit earlier. So one of them I got right.
And were you conscious that Darrell Holland and Falbrav were there just on your boot? Yeah.
Oh, I knew he was in there.
Very, very conscious of it.
I knew there was nowhere to come out. Unless he was to go back and around. I'd say he was just too far in to get out of that.
But it's race riding, isn't it? I mean, it was just all very tight, and the margins were so fine that whoever just got it right on the day, they were going to come out on top.
That's what often happens with this race. You know, you have all the best horses at it, and the margin for error is very little. You know, it's easy to get it right, but it's easy to get it wrong. You know, so it's just one of those things.
Sure, we'll head on up to the winning line.
Yeah.
So here we are, almost at the winning line for all races really, the Irish Champion Stakes and all races at Leopardstown. I've asked you where you wanted to be, Michael, at various junctures along the way, but I know where you want to be here.
Yeah, if I'm in front here, I should hopefully have a got. I know there's about 5 strides left, which can be long, but if you have it here, you should possibly have it. And
your last 2 Irish Champion Stakes winners were both for John Ox. Asamore was in 2004, which was your first year in the John Ox job.
Yeah. Yes, I needed all the straight that day. I only got up very close home. But he was that type of horse, loved challenging. And His Highness had a bird's eye view. He was, the Aga Khan wasn't here on time, so he couldn't land while the race was on, so he was watching it from above.
And he could see you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was he was a happy man when he got in to
I
see me
bet,
getting
yeah.
home. Yeah.
Brilliant, yeah. And was that a good feeling? Because Asmar, he was I think he was an 8-1 shot. Like he wasn't fully expected.
Yeah, he was sort of stepping up to that trip for the first time. He had won this at St James's Palace. I got beaten in Irish Guineas and ran well in the 2000 Guineas and just started to blossom well. You know, so he wasn't the obvious favourite on the day, but he was an improving horse. You know, 3-year-olds at that time of year and they start to improve. Well, it's a good time, great race for them.
Yeah, and then he improved next year as a 4-year-old as well, didn't he?
Yes,
yeah.
he did. He won a King George and ran well at the Breeders' Cup. You know, he won quite a few races the following year. So yes, he was a very good horse.
And then your final Irish Champion Stakes winner, probably the best one for the last one.
Yeah, I kept the best for last. Yeah, probably the best horse of all time for me. But yeah, we hadn't been able to race here in Ireland through that year. He had missed Irish Derby through ground conditions, and I sort of travelled to the UK a lot, and it was nice to come home. And there was a huge turnout here for him that day. People wanted to see him, you know, and they weren't let down. He was one of his dominant performances here.
And was like, for all See the Stars races, it just looked like they went like clockwork. You rode him with lots of confidence. He obviously had massive confidence in the horse. Was his last race here, was that just like that you just rode him and he did what you wanted him to do through the race?
Yeah, Johnny sort of moved around me turning for home, thought he'd force my hand, and I didn't want to move that early with him, so Johnny sort of went on around me and made it a little bit tight for a while on Flame and Glory. But then I challenged when I wanted to challenge on him. But he always had loads in the locker, you know. He was a great horse.
And obviously, yeah, he just had buckets of whatever you wanted: pace, stamina, and turn.
Yeah, it was
foot.
probably one of his easiest wins,
Yeah.
and you know, Ballydial had thrown everything at him on that day. Throw a lot of very good horses at him, but
Jamie
I think
Gordon
that
said Master Craftsman as well was in there.
Yeah, I can. Aidan sort of suddenly resigned to the fact no matter what he could do, he knew this horse was just a little bit exceptional,
Yeah.
and he even said so in the ring afterwards.
Whatever he did, he just couldn't beat him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he tried it, but just couldn't. Yeah, the horse just had it.
And was that? I mean, you mentioned the reception that he got. Was that extra special for you? I mean, you must have known then that was going to be your last Irish Champion Stakes, did you?
I did, yeah. I hadn't said it, but I had said it to Catherine through the year. I said, if this goes right and finishes well, I said it would be a great time to walk away. And yes, I knew it was. Yeah, so it was an emotional thing in a way. Yeah.
So coming back into the winners' enclosure, I mean, the reception you got, like, was that just a fantastic way to sign for him to sign off in Ireland?
Yeah. Well, for the horse, you know,
Yeah.
the people really had sort of, you know, had got on board with the horse, and it was similar. You know, when we went on to win the Arc, everybody turned up to see the horse, you know, from worldwide, because, you know, very seldom a horse really grabs the people's imagination, and you could see here in the Irish Champion weekend that had caught hold, you know. So, and the fan club was there, you know.
Yeah, and even going on to the Arc, as you mentioned, there was a kind of a willingness among everybody, for, I suppose, bar connections of his rivals, for See the Stars to go and win the Arc.
Yeah, the sort of people turned up at the Arc expecting him to win, you know. And I remember when the horse arrived into the parade ring was jammed, and they clapped him into it. And I remember saying to John, I said, I hope they're clapping in 10 minutes' time. I said, we're in trouble. But fortunately, they were.
And like his Irish Champion Stakes win for See the Stars, like, where does that rank for you among what he achieved?
Oh, great, because, you know, it was a very good race, and it was nice for the horse to show his wares at home, you know, from where he showed his talent in the spring here. We brought him here for a racecourse gallop to Leopardstown, and that was where we decided we'd go Guineas with him. We knew we had a sort of special horse, so this was where it started, and it was nice for the horse to come back to Leopardstown and show his true colours.
Yeah, and of course that was all before Irish Champions Weekend came into being in 2014. What do you think of the weekend as a concept?
I think it's fantastic. You know, we've two outstanding race days, different cards, Curragh being the home of racing here in Ireland, really, and Leopardstown is one of our best race courses. So I think it's cemented in the calendar, and it's been a fantastic addition to racing.
And all the Group 1 races over the course of the weekend, you've won them all, albeit in different guises. The Matron Stakes, you won it twice when it was a Group 3 race on French trained horses.
Yes, I did, yeah. You know, it's become very much sought after race for fillies and mile fillies. You know, if you win the Matron here, she's a beautiful filly to bring to the paddocks, and you know, and then we have the Ledger. So it's Mike Lair, isn't it? So it's a fantastic weekend's racing.
Yeah, National Stakes, Flying Five, and the Irish and Ledger as well, vintage crop. Like he won that twice with you.
Yes, won on Landy as well, won it a few times. So yeah, so I've great memories of this whole weekend. Yeah.
And what are you expecting this? Obviously, the Irish Champion Stakes this year, it's shaping up to be a hell of a race with St Mark's Basilica, Turnawa, probably Poetic Flare as well. How do you see it shaping up?
Well, St Mark's Basilica's performance in the Eclipse is probably the best performance of any racehorse this year. So it'll be, if he can come and show that, he's going to be very hard to beat. But he's had that setback. He missed the trip to York for the judgment, and so where he is, you know, if he's not 100%, he could be found wanting here on this long straight. You know, so can they put it up to him? They probably have to, and see what he's got. You know, Poetic Flare has been very consistent. I was in France at the sales when he won, when he was beaten in defeat, and probably his best run this year. And he looks like a horse for me that wants to go a mile and a quarter. If the step up in distance improves him, then he could be there to exploit St Mark's Basilica's fitness levels if there is an issue there.
And then Turnawa dropping back down to 10 furlongs.
Yes, you know, if the two of them get into a scrap, she's an exceptional race mare at a mile and a half. Is she going to be as effective going back a mile and a quarter here? She probably is going to need very strong pace, and our two rivals going to put in a plate for her? Probably not. It's me, probably not. You know, I'd probably find a middle balance. So, but she's fresh, coming in fresh, so she'll be there for sure.
Are you looking forward to the weekend?
It's going to be a great weekend. Yeah, can't wait.